They came with steel, fire, and conquest in their hearts. One African man stood between them and Mali's freedom. Tiramakhan Traoré, general, healer, master of the spirit world. While European invaders marched with guns, he fought with something far more powerful: ancient secrets, sacred amulets that turned bullets to dust, rituals that summoned storms to blind his enemies. Whispers say he spoke to the ancestors, and they answered. Witnesses swore the earth itself trembled when Tiramakhan called upon the old gods. His warriors moved like shadows, striking where least expected. The invaders wrote him off as superstition, until their weapons failed, their maps lied, and their men vanished in the night. Was it magic, strategy, or something beyond European understanding? One thing's certain: Tiramakhan Traoré became legend, and his secrets, they're still alive. Who told you Africa had no history, no books, no scholars? In the heart of Mali, buried under sand and silence, lies a truth they never wanted you to see: the Library of Timbuktu. Long before Europe had printing presses, before Oxford or Harvard existed, Timbuktu was a center of learning, trade, and science. By the 14th century, this city held over 700,000 manuscripts, written in Arabic, Ajami, and African languages. Books on astronomy, medicine, math, philosophy, law, and mysticism. Not just religion, science, surgery, and solar calendars. These weren't scrolls hidden in caves. They were part of a thriving academic system taught at Sankore University, where students from across Africa and the Middle East came to learn. When colonizers arrived, they labeled Africans illiterate, but Timbuktu had already mapped the stars and debated law centuries before. Even today, families risk their lives to protect these books from fire, theft, and war, because these aren't just manuscripts, they're proof. Africa didn't lose history. It was hidden, and it's being recovered. Before hospitals, before Western science had names for disease, Mali had healers, and they were centuries ahead of their time. In the villages and ancient cities of the Mali Empire, healers and mystics held sacred knowledge passed through bloodlines and spirit guides. They weren't guessing. They studied the body, the stars, the seasons, and the soul. These Africans used roots that modern pharmacology still can't fully explain, treated wounds with iron ash, stopped bleeding with desert salt, and healed infections with bark and honey. Some of their formulas were recorded in the Timbuktu manuscripts, right alongside astronomy and mathematics. But they weren't just doctors. They were diviners, dream interpreters, and ritual specialists. They diagnosed illness through spirit communication, pulse reading, and ancestral consultation. To them, sickness wasn't just physical, it was energetic, social, even spiritual. Colonizers called it superstition. Today, researchers call it ethnomedicine. But in Mali, they've always called it what it is: wisdom. Follow for more hidden sciences of ancient Africa.